Hello friends, I am Samir and I welcome you all to your own YouTube channel Aryabhatta Classes. Friends, today in this video we are continuing our discussion on logic, and in this video of logic today our topic will be categorical syllogism. Now in this video we will discuss the nature of categorical syllogism or the nature of syllogism, then the definition of pure categorical syllogism, and then after that we will discuss the structure of categorical syllogism. So, nature, definition and structure of categorical syllogism will be our topic in this video. So, before moving further, first let us discuss the nature of syllogism. Now, if I am saying syllogism here, I wants to means the whole class of syllogism I am discussing at the beginning, then I will come to a particular part of it, of which this chapter will be based. So, what is a syllogism? Okay. Now, syllogism is a form of mediate inference. In our previous videos, I already discussed about mediate and immediate inferences. Okay, you can follow those videos. Now, syllogism is a form of mediate inference. So, in a mediate inference, we draw a conclusion from the joint assertion of more than one premises. Okay. Now, what happens in case of mediate inference? To discuss the mediate inference, let me tell you about its counterpart, that is immediate inference. In immediate inference, we have, inferences are just one arguments. Okay. Now, the arguments are divided in two parts, that is one premise part and one conclusion part. Now, the conclusion is always one single propositions or statement, but the premises or the premise may contains one propositions or more than one propositions also. Now, if it is such an argument or inference where it has only one propositions in the premise and as always one conclusions. That means if the conclusion is drawn from only one single proposition of premise, then it is called immediate inference. But here our topic is not to discuss about immediate inference, that we have already discussed in the previous chapter, previous videos. Here our aim is to discuss about mediate inference. Now, what is mediate inference? Mediate inference is such a type of argument or inference where the premise part contains more than one propositions. That means if one proposition is one premise, then mediate inference contains two or more premises with single conclusions. Conclusion is always single. Okay. So, in a mediate inference, we draw a conclusion from the joint assertion of more than one premises. Okay. But our aim here is to not discuss about mediate inference. Our aim here is to discuss about syllogism. Now, what is syllogism? Syllogism is a special form of mediate inference. Now, what is syllogism and what is the speciality here? Now, syllogism is a form of argument or inference in which we draw a conclusion from the joint assertions of two premises, only two premises. I told you mediate inference has two or more number of premises, but syllogism is a special type of argument, okay, or special type of inference which has only two premises. Okay? So, in this way they are different and similar. Mediate inference contains, that means I can say in simple word that syllogism comes under mediate inference, because mediate inference is a big branch where the number of premises will be 2 or more, but if the number of premises will be only 2, then it becomes syllogism. Okay, I think you are a little bit clear now. Here the premises jointly support the conclusions and the conclusion is supported by both the premises. In the syllogism, which is a two premises and one conclusion argument or inference, here the premises, these two premises, they jointly together they support the conclusion, and the conclusion is also supported by both the premises. Okay. Now, let us discuss one example here, simple example to make it clear about it, that all teenagers are fond of cartoon pictures. This is one premise, first premise. And the second premise is some school going students are teenagers. This is the second premise. And what is the conclusion obtained from it? The conclusion is, therefore, some school going students are fond of cartoon pictures. Okay. So, all teenagers are fond of cartoon pictures. It is the first premise. Some school going students are teenagers. This is the second premise, and the conclusion is, therefore, some school going students are fond of cartoon pictures. So, this total system of three propositions, this is called one syllogism, and this comes under mediate inference, because it has two or more number of premises and one conclusions. Conclusion is always one, whether it is mediate or immediate, does not matter, but the matter is number of premises. As the number of premises here are strictly 2, then it is called syllogism. Okay. Now, we can graphically come to know that what we have discussed in the previous videos. The syllogisms are categorized in two ways, they are pure or mixed. Now, pure syllogism are also of two types, they are categorical and hypothetical, and mixed syllogism are divided in 4 categories. They are hypothetical, alternative, disjunctive and dilemma. These are all things we discussed in our previous videos of logic. Now, what is our aim today? These all things we are going to discuss one by one. We are going to discuss pure, and then we will come to discuss mixed syllogism also in our future videos. But today in this chapter, in this topic, in this video, our aim will be this categorical, this pure categorical syllogism. Okay. So, this pure categorical syllogism will be our topic of discussion. We will discuss different facts and natures and properties on it. So, beside using this long word pure categorical syllogism, I may call here only syllogism, but that you should not get confused in the video, because here the syllogism means in full form it is pure categorical syllogism. Whenever I am saying syllogism here, I want to say that I am telling about pure categorical syllogism only. Okay. Now, come to the definition of it. Now, what is the definition of pure categorical syllogism? So, the pure definition is, its perfect definition is, a categorical syllogism is a deductive argument consisting of 3 categorical propositions that together contain exactly 3 terms. These 3 propositions, categorical propositions, should contain only 3 terms, exactly 3 terms, each of which occurs exactly twice in the argument. Okay, each of which occurs exactly twice in the argument. Let us discuss let's match this definition with this example available in this page. Okay, this categorical syllogism, which is a deductive argument which consists of three categorical propositions. You see this example here, I have three categorical propositions. Proposition means statements. Okay, and that means a categorical, pure categorical syllogism should contains only three statements or propositions, of which two are premises and third is the conclusion. Now, in that there will be only three terms. Okay. Now, you can see what are the terms used in this example. First term is teenager, second is cartoon pictures. I told you term is not a single word, it may be a single word or it may be a group of words together. So, teenagers is my first term, cartoon pictures second term, school going students third term. And you can see only these three terms are used in all the propositions here. Here you can see teenagers, cartoon pictures, school going students, teenagers, and the last conclusion, school going students and cartoon pictures. You can see. So, these three terms are only used in these three statements here. And another, the last fact is that every proposition should contains only two terms out of it, these three. So, you see first proposition contains two terms, teenagers and cartoon pictures. Second proposition contains two terms, school going students and teenagers. And the third proposition, which is the conclusion, also contains two terms, that is school going students and cartoon pictures. Okay. So, this is the definitions of pure categorical syllogism. Okay. We may elaborate the definition as follows also. Let us discuss them further in little details. So, the first point says that a syllogism must have three propositions, out of which two supporting the propositions are premises and one drawn from the premises is the conclusion. I told you in this example already. Okay, friends. Now, the second point says that a syllogism should have three terms. We discussed in the previous example. The third point says that the premises and the conclusions are categorical propositions like A, E, I, O type. Okay, here whether it is the premises, two number of premises or the last conclusion, they are categorical propositions type. That means they comes under either A, E, I, O type. And what is this A, E, I, O type? I told you already. We have discussed all these things in our previous videos. You can follow those videos and you can see what is categorical propositions. You can see there. Now, the fourth and last point is the conclusion necessarily follows from the premises, and the relation between the premises and the conclusion is one of the logical implications. Whatever the conclusion we are getting here, that must be followed by the joint combination of the two premises. This is the fourth and important point of pure categorical syllogisms definitions. Okay, friends, I think you are little clear now. Let us come to the structure of pure categorical syllogism here. Okay. So, for your understanding, I have divided the points, I have written them separately one by one to make you or to discuss with you separately. Okay. Now, what is the structure? First point on is structure of categorical syllogism. Every syllogism has three and only three terms, that we are clear now. Then there should be three and only three terms in every categorical syllogisms. There cannot be 4 terms or 5 terms or 2 terms. There should be 3 and only 3 terms in whole syllogism. Now, these terms are named, these 3 terms, they have 3 different names. They are called major term, minor term or middle term. Major, minor and middle terms are the name of these 3 terms in the syllogism. Now, each terms occur twice in the syllogisms. Yes, every terms this occurs twice in every propositions of the syllogism that we discussed earlier. Then the next one is, in order to identify, okay, if a syllogism is given to you, we know one thing, that there are only 3 terms, but now we came to know that they have different names: major term, minor term and middle term. So, how to identify that which one is middle term, which one is minor term and which one is major term? So, for that this point will help you. In order to identify a term in a syllogism, we have to take into account the conclusion of the given argument. Okay. So, looking that final conclusions, the conclusion statement or propositions, and observing it and verifying it, we can divide and we can get the terms, and we can name them or divide them as in the category of major, minor or middle terms. Okay. So, the conclusion will tell you that which one is major term, which one is minor term and which is the middle term. It will help you, the conclusion will help in this regard. How it is? Let us see. The subject term of the conclusion is called the minor term. Yes, whatever the subject term is in the conclusion, that become your minor term, which is denoted as the symbol S, as per subject. The predicate term of the conclusion is called the major term, and as it the predicate, will define it or name it as capital P. Okay. And the term which is common in both the premises and does not occur in the conclusion is called the middle term, which is named as capital M. Okay, we are clear in this picture that the conclusions will help us to get the major and minor term. Okay. The subject of the conclusion is the minor term, which is S. The predicate of the conclusion is the major term, which is P. And there is another term left, and that is not discussed in the conclusion definitely, because it has already contained the subject and predicate. So, the third term, which is not present in the conclusion but commonly present in both the previous 2 premises, is called the middle term. So, in this way we can identify the minor, major and the middle terms in the total categorical syllogism. Now, the middle term acts like a connection between the 2 premises. Yes, it just acts as the bond or connective material between the 2 premises in the syllogism. The middle terms acts as the connective material. The major term and the minor term, they are called extremes. Yes, the 2 terms which are identified in the conclusion as the major and minor terms, they are called extremes. Remember the word extremes. The premise in which the minor term occur is called the minor premise. Yes, out of the major term and minor term, one of them present in the first premise and one of them present in the second premise. Okay, they both cannot occur in the both the premises, because combinedly they occur in the only in the conclusions. So, out of the 2 premises available in the syllogism, the premise which contains the minor term is called the minor premise, and the premise which contains the major term is called the major premise. Let me tell you, the minor premise is obtained. The minor is nothing but the minor term is the subject part of the conclusion, and the major term is the predicate part of the conclusions. So, whichever the premise contains the subject part of the conclusion is called the minor premise, and whichever the premises contains the predicate part of the conclusion is called the major premise. So, in simple language, a premise which contains the minor term of the syllogism is called minor premise, and a premise which contains the major term of the syllogism is called major premise. Okay. Now, the conclusion is obtained by joint assertion of both the major premise and the minor premise. Yes, the 2 premises, now they have 2 special names. one is called major premise and the second is called minor premise. So, now we can restate it that the conclusion is obtained by the joint association of both the premises, as the conclusion is obtained by the joint association of both the major premise and the minor premise. It is the same statement, but told in the new language, new terms. Now, in a syllogism, generally the major premise is stated first, the minor premise is second and the conclusion is last. Okay. So, in a syllogism which contains three propositions, first two are premises, last one is the conclusion. So, out of that the first premise is called the major premise, the second premise is the minor premise, and the last one is definitely the conclusions. So, major, minor and conclusions, in this way they are categorized. So, let us discuss this whole things through this one example, a small example. This is a syllogism, example of a syllogism, and the three propositions here are: all men are mortal, Ram is a man, therefore Ram is mortal. So, let us discuss all those facts there we have discussed just before it. It has why it is called syllogism? Because it has two premises and one conclusion, only two premises and one conclusion. Okay, that is why it is called syllogism. Why it is called categorical syllogism? Because all these three proposition or statements are categorical proposition types. It is come under A, E, I, O groups. Now, the first one is called major premise, the first premise is called major premise, the second premise is called minor premise, and third is called conclusions. Now, let us find out the minor term and the major term here. You see, the subject of the conclusion is Ram, that is the minor term or S. The predicate of the conclusion is mortal, that is the major term P. Okay. Now, the minor term S, which is contained in the second premise here, you can see that is why it is called minor premise. The major term, that is mortal, is used in the first premise, that is why it is called major premise. Okay. Beside that, there is one more term, that is main, and that is used in both the premises. This is the bond or joint connection between the two premises, major premise and minor premise. That is common in both, but that is not present in the conclusion also. Okay. And this is called the middle term M. Okay, friends. So, I think you are clear through all these points through this example. Now, if we will name this, if we rewrite this example in terms of the symbols S, P and M, middle term, major term and minor terms, then in terms of symbols the whole argument or syllogism can be written in this way, that is all M is P, all S is M, and the conclusion is therefore all S is P, all S is P. Okay. So, what is this called? This is called the form of the argument. This is the form of the argument or the structure of the argument.